We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Sunday when you're listening to this, but we're recording it Saturday night on Substack Live. Now, we're hoping we get a lot of people to show up, get some interaction, get some talking going on. But there's still plenty of things that are happening out there that we need to discuss. We've got this whole thing with Pete Hegseth. You know, when you look at all the people in Donald Trump's administration, they're not only incompetent, but they're doing criminal type things. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, over and above all the criminality that they've been involved in. The biggest thing that they're doing is a cover up. We know that that's the biggest problem generally. Whenever there's crimes, it's the cover up that always gets Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and others are going to be culpable. And not only them, but the people that help them. Now, the one that's got to be a big deal now and really starting to shake people up is Pete Hegseth. There was a story that came out. Well, not a story. We know that Donald Trump and the Defense Department, at the behest of Pete Hegseth, have been bombing fishing boats in international waters, claiming that these were drug boats and drug traffickers bringing them to the United States. Well, where they were found, these size boats could never have made it to the United States. There was nothing done to check and see if they, in fact, were carrying drugs. They were just bombed. People died. Maybe as many as 80 people died in 16 or 17 boats. But there was one instance, particularly, that is particularly troublesome. One of those boats was carrying 11 people. It was bombed, and then after it was bombed, there was 2 surviving people from this boat, and they were clinging to pieces of the boat to survive. So SEAL Team 6 apparently said to Pete Hegseth, "What do we do now?" And Pete Hegseth said, "Kill them all." So apparently there was a second attack and killed them all. See, that's where the problem is. These people had no chance of fighting back. These people are of no danger to us. I mean, in fact, all 11 in the boats were dangerous. But by doing that, some people will suggest it's a war crime. Unfortunately, we're not in a war, so it's not a war crime, certainly an international crime. You can call it a lot of things, but bottom line is murder. That's what it is. It's murder. And it's not just the United States that's going to be upset about this. There are going to be people all around the world that are going to be upset about this. Now, the Defense Department is suggesting this is all a hoax. This isn't true. Well, we got the information. I believe the New York Times got the information, and no doubt they have receipts. Interesting thing is, this is pissing off and scaring not only the Democrats in Congress, but the Republicans as well. So now they're going to have a bipartisan investigation. This is going to be interesting because we've got a DOJ that's complicit with Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. This is one of the problems we have right now. Even if somebody is convicted criminally on a federal level, we've got the DOJ, which is basically a puppet of Donald Trump, and they will do whatever they want to do. I'll give you an example. You know, Donald Trump is bombing these boats because he's trying to stop drug traffickers from coming in this country. He's trying to close the border because of all the drug traffickers coming across the border into this country. Yeah, he hates drugs. He absolutely despises drugs. Well, if that's the case, then explain to me why he announced that he's going to pardon Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras. Hernandez is in prison in the United States, a federal prison, for drug trafficking. He's one of the biggest drug traffickers we've seen. He was arrested and put in jail in this country. But now Donald Trump, as much as he hates drugs, is going to release this guy. And the question is why? Well, the reason why is because he's somehow or for some reason trying to influence an election in Honduras. Why the fuck do we care about Honduras, for fuck's sake? Don't we have enough problems here or with Russia and Ukraine or Israel and Hamas? We got to go in and fuck around with Venezuela and we got to fuck around with Honduras? This is Donald Trump is just creating messes everywhere he goes in hopes that'll take some of the heat off him. Analytical Iowan Eric says there'll be a reckoning after Dems are back in charge. There will be a reckoning, and there will be investigations, and there will be crimes exposed. My question is there going to be accountability? Is there going to be punishment? Because even though we may get the power back in the House and the Senate, the DOJ is the one that's going to have to mete out um, these court cases and ultimately the punishment. And of course, Donald Trump and the DOJ can forget about stuff or just pardon these people. That's my only concern about it. Do you think SCOTUS will side with Trump on the tariffs? No, I don't. It's possible. We've seen some pretty fucked up things done by them, but what it says in the Constitution is pretty clear. It's pretty clear, and it's going to be hard to figure out a workaround or a loophole to give Donnie his bidding. But here's the thing about it too is we're seeing a turning tide, not only maybe with the Supreme Court, but with Congress and other people in his cabinet. People are getting to the point where they're starting to push back. They see the end is near. I've often said that the only thing Donald Trump rules with is fear. The moment people become less fearful of him, that's the moment where he's done. And here's the thing, he's failing it all the way. The polls are terrible. People are starting to feel a little more emboldened in terms of pushing back on Donald Trump, especially since we had this vote in the House and the Senate regarding the Epstein files. Everybody in the Republican Party, with the exception of one person, voted against Donald Trump. Since Donald Trump has been around 10 years ago, that has never happened. It's been close, and people were going to vote against him, and the last minute, they voted with him because he no doubt intimidated them, threatened him, or bribed them, or whatever the fuck he's doing. That didn't happen in this case. That got away from Donald Trump. It was beyond his ability to manage it, and these people pushed back. And I think the important thing about that is most people won't do something against Donald Trump because they fear retribution or some kind of punishment. Well, we had all these people in the House and the Senate voting against Donald Trump, and he may or may not have been mad. However, what did he do? He didn't do anything. And once a bully makes a threat and then doesn't follow through with it, in spite of the fact somebody disobeyed them, he gets weak. And Donald Trump is getting weaker every fucking day. This administration has to go. That says Trevor. Yeah, absolutely. The entire administration has to go. I mean, we may have to settle for just an impeachment. And I'm not talking about the Democrats. I'm talking about the Republicans ultimately maybe impeaching him. Some people think that it won't be till after the election in 2026. It could come sooner than that, especially if he keeps doing some of the egregious things that he's doing. There's a real chance the Dems take the House before the midterms, and Donnie might be gone before the midterms as well. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. It could be. We've got this election going on in Tennessee next Tuesday, I think. Afton Bain is going up a Trump-humping piece of shit, Van Epps. We know that Donald Trump won that district by 22 points. What's interesting now is in this particular polling for this election, Van Epps has 48 points and Afton Bain has 46 points. The fact that she's that close is crazy, is unexpected. And so if that happens, that tightens the people in the House even more, giving Republicans less of a margin. We also know that Troy Nell, a Representative Troy Nell in Texas, announced today that he's not running for re-election. He's retiring. So there's a lot of shit going on, and a lot of people booking the fuck out of Congress because they know what's going to happen. Somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Nell, they may be seeing the writing on the wall that they might lose. And instead of having that stain on their record, they'll just retire and move on and do something else and run for something else at some point. Spacer says there are likely going to be a lot of seats flipped. A lot of Republicans are quitting and gets rid of the name recognition, compounded on top of that with the unpopularity of the Republicans. Yeah, when they start to spiral, it just gets worse. You're exactly right. The Republicans know how bad it's going to be. It's going to be a bloodbath. And they don't want to be in the middle of it, so they're going to turn tail and run. But if after this election on Tuesday, the Democrat wins, I think we may be seeing a lot more people retiring and maybe retiring like Marjorie Taylor Greene did in the middle of their term, which could tighten things up considerably as far as the majority for the House. In order for the Democrats to get the majority, we have to get to 218. Eric explained this to me. The presumption is you've got 218 in the Republicans and say 216 in the Democratic side. You would presume that if they lose 2 seats and they're at 216 or 215 and Democrats are 216, then Hakeem Jeffries would become the Speaker of the House. But I don't think in that case that's true. I think that's what Eric said. We'd have to have the 218. So as well as them losing seats, we would have to gain some seats. And I'm not saying we can't do that. But basically what that would do is that would paralyze the House of Representatives and nothing would get done. And let's be honest, when the Democrats win the House and the Senate in the midterms, nothing is going to get done in terms of legislation, because even if they got it voted on and they did it, Donald Trump is not going to sign it. And there's no way around it unless you get a supermajority. And I doubt that we're going to get that far ahead of them. You never know, but I doubt it. We need to be careful about having too much optimism. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, Robert. I'm never worried about being too optimistic. Why would you be afraid of being too optimistic? It's not going to magically go against us because we're too optimistic. I'll tell you why people don't like to be too optimistic. Why they like to assume the worst, which is a horrible thing to do. It's because they're terrified of being wrong. That's the only reason. They're terrified of being wrong. So that's why they feign optimism. And here's the thing. You have to understand, everybody in this country, everybody in this world, me included, have the ability to be wrong. And, even on this podcast and on TikToks, I've been wrong. But so the fuck what? I'm just a guy. We're going to be wrong now and then. You can't put that pressure on you that you have to be right all the time, that you have to be the smartest one. We will make bad choices or be wrong. Now, people will get on me and say, you were wrong about that, Mike. Okay, I was wrong. Big deal. I'm not a psychic or a medium or anything like that. All I can do is take what I know, put it together, and decipher for myself how it should turn out based on what has happened. Can I be wrong? Absolutely. I was wrong about Kamala Harris. But so what? Don't worry so much about being wrong. Optimism has some other benefits. Negativism has no benefits. So there's no point in saying, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm always optimistic and I'm always positive about the things I believe based on the information I have. If I'm wrong, okay, learn a lesson, spin off that, and do something different. Spacer says, yes, but Robert, their usually talking points are not effective anymore. The mass media is basically inconsequential as we see people moving away from it. And I will tell you what, the mass media is in the process of changing too. We would believe that the mass media is only friends of the Republicans, and I realize oligarchs own the mass media. But I will tell you this about the media. They're like Congress. They're only in it for the money. When you have somebody like Donald Trump, it's fun to ride his coattails and pump him up, and he's successful and he wins elections, so he makes good television, good media. But every time somebody is raised up like that, somebody who is exalted like Donald Trump, there's always the other side. There's always the trek down. And when it becomes more popular, more viewers watching Donald Trump get torn apart and destroyed, and it's coming. It will come. It's almost here now. When it's come, it's going to be a fucking avalanche. And the media will jump on board with that. I'm not looking forward to it. I don't trust the media any more than when they were covering him favorably. But that's what it'll do. And it may or may not affect us. I mean, we know what we know, but those dumb fucks, the 30% or so that are his buddies, are gonna have to watch this all the time. That's They're gonna have to watch this, and, it's gonna change some minds because 'cause there'll be a lot of things, exposed, and it's going to become popular, and people are going to be enthusiastic about tearing apart Donald Trump. It always fucking happens. No matter who you got, no matter how famous or how big a star somebody is, they bring him to the top, and then they enjoy tearing him down. I'm surprised it's taken this long with Donald Trump, but, it's always it was always going to come, and we're getting closer now as we watch what's going on. I mean, Donald Trump is certainly not in his right mind. He's railing on people, he's going after people, he's calling, um, the governor of Minnesota the R word, he's going after Ilhan Omar, going after other immigrants. That's the only winning conversation he has is immigrants, and at this stage, that's the least of our problems. You know, we keep talking about people coming across the border, illegal immigrants. When we look at what's going on right now with the economy, with the Jeffrey Epstein files, with all of this stuff, the immigrant problem is the least of our problems. Donald Trump will always try to make it the worst, but in real terms, the things that affect us directly are grocery prices. They are inflation. They are cities being invaded by National Guard. And when we bring up the National Guard, we have to bring up that situation in Washington D.C. That is truly a tragic situation. The way it plays out, some guy walks up to two National Guard members who are unarmed and shoots them in the head. One is still alive but struggling, and the other, a young woman, Sarah Beckstrom, is dead. I look at that picture of Sarah Beckstrom and I'm thinking that could be my granddaughter. She's a cute 20-year-old girl just trying to do better for herself. She is in Washington, D.C. illegally at the orders of Donald Trump. That's what you got to remember. Um, that's what you got to remember. There was a court and a judge that several days earlier has said putting National Guard in Washington, D.C. is illegal. So at that point, Donald Trump, as president of the United States, somebody who's not above the law, should have pulled them out just as the court ordered. But he didn't do that. Fucker still hasn't done it. So Donald Trump is culpable in this situation, and I hope people understand that, and I hope they hold him responsible for that. Corporations like Starbucks and Target are trying to rebrand now. Target just announced a $5 billion revamp. I actually went into Target that one day, didn't buy anything, but I saw that they were not having a good time this holiday. Lots are empty with barely any people, and I bet a Black Friday and Christmas on top of the tariff issues because of Trump, they will suffer the holiday. I tell you what, I drove by a Target. I didn't go in. Drove by a Target at a popular um, mall near me. Um, and all my years going by that Target on Black Friday, it's always been packed. My wife and I would never go out into those places because it was too crazy. I drove by it Friday, the lot was sparse. So whether it's the boycott or whether it's what Target did with DEI, I don't know. But there's a lot of people that would normally be going to Target that are not going to Target, especially for the holiday season. This is going to be a rough one for big box um, stores this particular season. I mean, it's been tough anyway because so many people are buying online, but this is just going to cause immense problems. This is a week-old story of a Russian combatant found with a Canadian gun. The situation is that the combatant found the gun from a Ukrainian soldier or gun that was smuggled to Russia forces. Hope the situation is the first. I don't want to think there's someone double dealing and giving the Russians supplies. Yes, double dealing. I got to tell you, whether it be in the military, whether it be in our own Congress, I guarantee you there's a lot of fucking double dealing on. I just saw um, the senator or rep Burchett. Now he's a Trump humping piece of shit, but he was angry. He was angry at both the Republicans and the Democrats regarding this bill that's supposed to come up about insider trading. He was basically saying that the Congress is corrupt when it comes to these insider trading things. You're seeing more and more Republicans realizing the end is near and they better start talking the right way. Otherwise, they're going to go down with the ship. Trump thinks if he appeals enough that he will get a judge who will side with him. He's delusional. Well, yeah, as of late, he's delusional because nobody's siding with him. I think I heard about a case where even email Bove sided against Trump. Now that would be saying something. That email Bove, who is now a federal judge, who had no business being a federal judge, he's a criminal, is. But here's the thing with somebody like email Bove, who's a federal judge, he has an appointment for life, and that's why I never understood why judges came to Donald Trump. They have lifetime appointments. Donald Trump really can't do anything to them if they go against him. And if email Bove did that, I'm surprised, but what the fuck, we'll take it. How does someone travel across the country via air with a gun? You can do it. I know my wife works for an airline, and they have to be checked and locked and stored properly. But there are a lot of people that travel across the country with guns. Some of them don't know what they're doing. They get themselves in trouble. But you can go with guns or multiple guns or a rifle or something. You know, people do it all the time to go hunting and what have you. But yeah, I mean, you don't stick it in your belt loop and try to get through the the gate. But if you do it properly, you can move guns across the country in a plane. It happens all the time. My wife will come home and talk to me about this gun or that gun, and somebody who's got it in a case. I think they have to be put in a case that is checked and sitting in the bottom of the plane. The bullets have to be in separate spots. It can be done. It can be done, and it's done all the time. So we got that. We got that to consider. The bottom line is we've got too many guns. Now, this situation in Washington, D.C. is particularly troubling. It's very sketchy. It's like the Charlie Kirk situation or the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt. We have all these horrific things going on, and isn't it amazing how little we know about it? Like the shooter in Butler, PA, what do we know about him? Nothing. And they killed him. We know nothing about him. We know more about the JFK assassination than the assassination attempt in Butler, PA. Why is that? Donald Trump always claims to be transparent. Well, not in that case. And then Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk gets killed. They claim they have the guy, but the videos they show us makes us think it's probably not the guy. How could he have done it? There was no gun, and then there was a gun, and then he had to put the gun to back. It makes no sense. And you don't hear anybody talking about it. Nobody's reporting on it at all. And then we get to Washington, D.C., and some guy, some random guy walks up, shoots 2 National Guard members. That's crazy enough. That's troubling enough. Then we hear he's from Afghanistan. Oh, no, we got an immigrant that's doing this. That's terrible. But that's not it. Then we also hear that for a time he worked in conjunction with the CIA for America in Afghanistan when they were doing the pullout. And what he was doing was night raids. I mean, this guy's a killer by trade. So he finds himself in Washington State. He decides to fly from Washington State to Washington, D.C., walk up to 2 National Guard members and shoot them. Why would he do that? I mean, if you're looking at these things, these all seem to come at opportune times that might be used as distractions. Now, I know you're going to say that's crazy. People died in these instances. Um, I'm not so sure Donald Trump cares about collateral damage. I mean, let's remember in COVID, he said it was nothing. He said it was a hoax, and 1 million people died, and he has no guilt for that. So if other people were to fall while he was trying to cover his ass, that would not at all surprise me. Now, again, those sound like conspiracy theories, and I don't buy into anything unless I know for a fact. But you look at the angles, you look at the situation, and if you say anything about it, you got to say, it's fucking weird. It makes no sense. It's sketchy. Vincent says, wasn't there a Republican senator who's against Trump now because Trump's remarks of calling someone the R word because the senator having a child with Down syndrome? It wasn't well, it might have been a state senator. This was happening in Indiana, and Donald Trump is trying to get them to redistrict. Didn't pass at first. Now they're trying some other angle. But Donald Trump made that reference to Tim Walz as the R word. I'm not going to say the word because my wife would kick my ass, and it's disrespectful anyway. But there was a Republican legislator in Indiana that came out and said, "I'm voting against Donald Trump for this redistricting." He claimed he had a Down syndrome child, and he was appalled by what Donald Trump said, as well you should be. So it wasn't a senator; it was a state. It was a state legislator. Spacer says, I left this in a YouTube comments, but Stephen A. Smith, who is rumored to be seeking Democratic nomination for president in 2028, he spoke out against Mark Kelly about his video about the military. Stay out of politics, Stephen. No one wants you. You know what? I've never really made any comments about Stephen A. Smith, but he's an arrogant, loudmouth piece of shit, and he should stay out of politics. Focus on getting angry about basketball or football or something. We don't fucking care, Stephen. We got enough clowns in politics and in the media. We don't need another inexperienced clown with too big a fucking ego. Yeah, he sucks. I don't like him. And I have a feeling that if he decided to run for something, they're going to dig up some skeletons. I think I feel pretty confident of that. Spacer says, Vincent, I remember Sarah Palin tried suing Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, because they told a joke about her having a daughter with Down syndrome. Same double standard. Yeah, I vaguely remember that one, and she did try to sue him, and I don't think it went anywhere. Um, I I think regardless of who you are, if you're making fun of somebody who has some disabilities, that's a pretty fucking weak joke. That's a pretty weak comment. And if you have to resort to that, you're a piece of shit. Now, Seth MacFarlane, I don't know much about him. I never really watched Family Guy that much. I know it's funny. I know a lot of people like it, but there are limitations. I mean, I come on TikTok and I come on the podcast and I cuss a bit. I say some pretty blunt shit. But you know what? Even I know there are some lines. There are some lines you don't want to cross. You don't need to cross. If you have to do that to be funny, you have to question how funny you fucking are. Um, but we are starting to see more Republicans push back on Donald Trump. And as they push back and nothing happens to them, this fear of Donald Trump will fade away. And like I say, once people don't fear him anymore, he's done. Absolutely done. Because he's not doing the Republican Party any good at this point. Um, Donald Trump's polling came out. You know, it's interesting. He's always saying, "Oh, my polling's the best ever." Fact of the matter is, it's the worst ever. He's down to 36% approval. 60% of the people in this country disapprove of Donald Trump. This is the lowest point in the 10 or 11 months he's been in office this time around, and the lowest point since 2021 when he left office from his first term. Things aren't going well for Donald Trump in terms of polling, regardless of what he says. Ask yourself who gained from the shooting. It seems like Trump found an excuse to deport more people and to strengthen his argument against immigrants. That's what I'm saying. What's the point of this? This wasn't a terroristic act. It didn't accomplish anything. It didn't do anything. And what's the first thing they said after this happened? Pete Hegseth said, "We're sending 500 more troops in there." Then they said, "We are going to stop all immigration from third world countries." And then Donald Trump said he would cancel all asylums interviews at this point. Not to mention a couple of other issues. He loves the idea of abstraction, and he's really pushing hard. He's been pushing hard to try to get some unrest in the streets. He really wants that. And I know a lot of people think it's because he wants to institute the Insurrection Act and martial law. I don't think he can't do that nationwide. It's just not logistically possible. But he does want to create a mess. This is what Donald Trump does in every situation. He creates a mess, he creates chaos, and then he tries to benefit from it. And I'm not going to go as far as saying that he was tied into this whole shooting in Washington, D.C., or the Charlie Kirk shooting. I'm not going to say that Donald Trump was part of that, but I'm not going to say he wasn't. Because of what we know of Donald Trump, it could be fucking anything. All right. It's why he's pushing this weak distraction to reform the United Nations. Yeah. I don't think anybody in the United Nations wants to listen to anything Donald Trump fucking says. It reeks of a weird plan. Just reeks of an excuse to get rid of everyone. He is talking about denaturalization U.S. citizens. And you know, at this point, after you start deporting these people, he hasn't deported anywhere near as many as Barack Obama did. But it's not doing any good. It's causing people to be upset. It's causing problems with the economy because of the workers. But he doesn't have the ability to look and pivot and try something different, even though this shit isn't working. Eric says he tried to end asylum in the first term, and the court said no. Yeah, guaranteed that's what they would say this time, too. Vincent says CPC, Conservative Party of Canada, are filibuster a bill on hate speech. You're free to speak your mind, not free of consequences. David Hunsinger says mob mentality. Yeah, it's everything that Donald Trump does and the Republicans try to do is about limiting um, personal or constitutional rights for the people. Uh, Polyev will fail like he always does. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Polyev is a joke. We've talked to some people about him, and he's like he's like Donald Trump light. Uh, he's a weaker version of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is at his weakest point ever right now. Um, but and you know, it's amazing how Canada can be impacted. What's politically speaking, with what's going on in the United States. We're close neighbors in spite of the fact that we have our problems with tariffs now. Um, it was interesting that Mark Carney came out last week and said, "All right, I had a fucking enough. We're just not dealing with the United States anymore." Donald Trump put on the tariffs. He expected Carney to bend a knee. He didn't. Then he put more tariffs on, and then that was causing economic problems. So he went in and claimed to work out a deal. But unfortunately, Donald Trump doesn't follow through with the things he's promising. So I think Carney and Canada have just gotten tired of it and said, fuck it. You can't negotiate with somebody you just can't trust. Spacer says, I've been seeing a new distraction from Republicans. There are some Republicans in Texas and some in other cities around the country wanting to pass anti-Sharia laws. And this is all about Mom Donnie, isn't it? They think he's going to bring in Sharia law. For fuck's sake. I got to tell you, I don't know anything about Sharia law. I think the odds of that happening in this country are about minus 100%. But I will tell you that something that's comparable, that is in the process of people trying to make happen, is this Project 2025. It ain't a whole lot different than Sharia law. So they can, and you know, this is what they do. They project everything they make accusations about, they're guilty of. And as I say, I don't know much about Sharia law, but I know some of the basics. And Project 2025 ain't much better. Incandescent Light says Christian nationalism in Project 2025 is like Sharia law. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For what little I know about Sharia law, it does have some similarities. Um, Eric says, I remember Republicans losing their minds about Sharia law with Obama. They also said that if Obama got elected, everybody'd have to be Muslim, that they'd take away our guns, which none of that shit happened. You would think that after a period of time, you would stop listening to the bullshit. You want to know what's interesting? There were more guns sold during Obama's term, 2 terms, than any other president in history. And I can tell you why that happened. Everybody was terrified that Obama was going to take the guns, so everybody went out and bought 20 guns. And they sold a lot of guns. But you know what's interesting? Obama never did anything to take away the guns. I mean, frankly, a president can't take away your guns. It's got to be Congress that takes away your guns. They can sign off on it if it's passed in Congress. But whenever you stand up and you listen to these campaign speeches and they say this person's going to do that or that person's going to do that, in most cases, that's not true. That's not true at all. Now, in the case with Donald Trump, he'll tell you all the things he's going to do, and then what happens is he'll do just the opposite. Now, there was somebody on one of the Sunday shows, I think it might have been Carolyn, uh, the spokesperson, Carolyn, whatever the fuck her name is. It was either her or somebody else that said, Donald Trump has done everything he's promised. Really? Brought down prices? No. Got more jobs? No. Deported more people than anybody in history? No. Donald Trump has done nothing that he promised. And he's done some things that he never talked about because had he talked about them, he would have never gotten elected. But they keep trying to sell this story that Donald Trump is so smart and that Donald Trump is doing all the things he's supposed to be doing and that tariffs are beneficial to this country. None of that is true. Carolyn Levitt, thank you, Dennis. I know her name. It's just one of those times when KK Carolyn Levitt. Yeah, you're right about that. You know, this woman, what's she, 27 years old? She's a fucking dope. And you can see that this constant lying and the pressure from the press is really getting to her. She seems a little shaken. Let's see, Mom Donnie and the shooting. It is a target towards Muslims. Australia has their own MTG type person who wore a burqa to a parliamentary hearing, and she was Hold on here. She worked to hearing she was expelled from parliament. They are running out of excuses now, trying to mark Muslims as the enemy. I heard that one podcast you did with Will, where he explained the social experiment where they called a church and the places of worship to see what they could get for, a can of formula for a starving kid. And none of the upper level Christian churches did, but a mosque did, and a couple other small churches. And the mosque were the only ones geared up to help, with exception to some morally fine churches who still care. Well, that's exactly right. You know, these people will beg you for money and shame you for money, but when you need it for the people who support you, they got no help to offer. It's like Congress. People in the middle class need the help, so they just give more money to rich people. That makes no fucking sense. I wonder if we need to concentrate on the Heritage Foundation and the people associated with it, stop their funding by stopping the ones donating, like Hobby Lobby, as their owner is part of that. They are a reason we are in this mess, and Congress is a fault for letting them do it. Yeah, I think you make an excellent point there that that is true. And we should boycott anybody who supports what's going on with the Republican Party, or especially Project 2025. I know I don't go to Hobby Lobby. My wife used to. We don't do it anymore. We don't go to Walmart. We barely we rarely go into Target anymore. I mean, we're forced to buy online, and then we've got to be limited in who we buy from because you even got Amazon, who's a fucking supporter. These people are going to be coming out of this holiday season feeling pretty bad because this is the time of the year where they make most of their money, and I think they're going to be running into problems now. Evangelicals are spreading fear that Muslims are going to take over our country and that they want to kill everyone else because it's written in the Quran. First of all, it's not written in the Quran. Um, we got more people talking bullshit that they don't know anything about. I know plenty of Muslim people, and not all of them hate Americans. There are some that do, but there are some Republicans that hate Americans too. So maybe we should eradicate those motherfuckers as well. Um, this is what the Republicans have to do. They have to have an enemy, and they have to instill fear. That's the only game they've got. That's the only strategy they have. And if you fall into it and you buy into it, well, then you're dumb as fuck. Um, I'm wondering if there needs to be a law for oversight um, places of worship. If funds donated to the church aren't being used morally correct and aren't being used to line the pockets of megachurches, they should lose tax exempt status. Yeah, that whole tax exempt status, that is just a license to steal for some of these big megachurches. And trust me, they are stealing. I mean, how many megachurches have we seen that have kind of fallen in shame because they expose their leaders as grifters and stealing money and doing immoral things? The whole idea of a tax-free church was maybe well and good back in the day when we had small churches, which were communities. Now we have churches that are fucking conglomerates. We should tighten tighten the rope a little bit around these churches to make them qualify and to report accurate reports that allows them to stay tax exempt. And when they can't do that, it should be taken away. It should be taken away. And when they start talking about political things, which they aren't allowed to do to be tax exempt, it should be taken away. Priests with Lamborghinis, Joel Osteen. You know what? I knew people maybe 10 years ago, they were trying to sell me on Joel Osteen. Um, and I've only watched evangelists in the past because I'm kind of intrigued by how they talk and how they get people sucked in. I don't buy their bullshit. I don't need to buy their bullshit. Nobody does. Weak people need to be led. You know what's right. You know what's good. You can talk to God on your own. You don't have to go through some guy with a fucking diamond ring and a Lamborghini. You don't have to do that. Um, it's like our politicians, you know, they go in, they may have a reasonable mind and they may have a true heart, but once the money starts flowing and the power starts to come around, these people get bought up into it and they lose themselves. Vincent says, I'm surprised that Trump didn't use the Afghan national to attack the Taliban for a distraction. Wouldn't put it past him to do it. No, what he's trying to do, and what I think we should be concerned about, is now seeing attacks on Muslim people in this country. That's distinctly possible. Remember, we went through that time period where Asian American people were getting attacked on the streets in San Francisco and such. This is the problem. Donald Trump says something, oh, they're bad people. We should get them out. They should be hung. They should be whatever. And then dumbasses go out and do his bidding, or at least attempt to do it. Many of these people are cowards and they like to make claims. It's like the people who come on TikTok and try to bully people like me or other Democrats. Um, they don't really have the capability of doing anything. All they really have is the capability of trying to make threats. And then if you don't bend to them, there's really nothing else they can fucking do. Spacer says priests are meant to be scholars of the Bible. I'm a Christian, but I believe God in my own way. I don't need a church, but some people who need help understanding God from priests should be sought to understand, not to line their pockets. Give people a little opportunity to grift and a little bit of power, and it runs to their heads. High percentage of them. We see it in politics. I mean, why do we not have Medicare for all? Why do we not have Roe v. Wade codified? There's been plenty of times when the Democrats have had power and they haven't done it. This is what I've said before. We have big problems in the Republican Party. I mean, that is a dumpster fire that we must put out. But once it's put out, we need to take an audit of our Democratic representatives too. There's a lot of them that take AIPAC money, and why we're giving Israel tons of money, I have no fucking idea. Makes no sense. We give them tons of money, and then they give their people free health care. We can't get free health care here. Maybe we just take that money that they don't need and give it to the people that do need it in this country. Everybody talks about America first. Why are we sending 40 billion to um, South America, or why are we sending money to Israel? That's hardly America first. All churches either stand against this regime or be labeled a cult. The Catholic Church is starting to stand up. I am encouraged by that. I don't have a church myself, lost it during the pandemic. They showed their ass at the time. Yeah, I think a lot of people saw through a lot of these fuckers when it all ultimately happened. Incandescent lights as Dems sit on that so they can run on it. Roe, Equal Rights Amendment, etc. Yeah, I'll agree with you. And in fact, I think the Republicans for many years weren't that worried about overturning Roe v. Wade because every election they were able to fundraise on it and they were able to run on it, and it paid them very well. Now they don't have that anymore, so they have to come up with something else, like the Muslims are going to get us or the Mexicans are going to get us, and still instilling that fear. Dennis says Midas Touch just read a letter from top retired military lawyers that the killing of people in Venezuela is a war crime. I agree with you. And you know, the interesting thing, and when this is all said and done, they don't have to worry about domestic law. There's going to be some international law that's going to come looking for them. Spacer says that's why we need to support these new entries into politics on the Democratic side. They understand now is the time for action. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the smartest move we can do is to support any young politician coming in. I'm not saying that all young politicians are great politicians, but we've got to wean ourselves off of the establishment. We are where we are now largely due to the establishment. We need young people taking the jobs in the House and the Senate and in the Oval Office for that matter, so they can determine their destiny as opposed to some old fuck like me determining what their life is going to be after I'm dead and gone. Speeches are only good for campaigning. Now's the time for action. Well, yeah. And honestly, I'm glad we are seeing some action. We're seeing a pretty extensive protest. We're seeing boycotting of companies and products and that sort of thing. We need to do more. We certainly need to do more. We need to keep the pressure on. We're in a fortunate situation. We've got the Republican Party who are largely bullies. And the important thing is when you get the bullies on the run, which is where we are now, you got to chase them down and put them down permanently. Because if you don't, they will stand up again and come jump on your back and fucking attack you. They're like cancer. They'll metastasize on this country. So when we vote these people out, eradicate them, we need to keep the pressure on, expose them for their crimes. Don't do this bullshit like they did with Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon. Now, Richard Nixon needs a pardon because we need the country to heal. At this point in time, in order for this country to heal, we need to see some accountability. Too many people have seen people get away with things, and that's making them angry and not trust the government. And I'll be honest with you, there is no reason right now to trust the media or the government. They have done nothing to be trustworthy, and if we trust them, we're being foolish. Now, if this government wants to operate properly, they're going to have to regain the trust in this country of the people. And that's going to cost them to do some work too. Where do you think those in Trump administration who caused crime will run to? Hope to God they don't run to Canada to hide. That's a good question. Will they run to hide? You know, I was asking somebody that don't they realize they're in trouble when Donald Trump's gone and Donald Trump is hanging by a fucking thread at this point? Don't they realize it? And I think, well, maybe Eric told me this, that they think they're really going to ride this out and win. Maybe they honestly do believe that. And if they do, they're going to be in for a big surprise. Will they try to run out of the country? Maybe some of them, but there'll be plenty that will be picked up because what do they do when they're being accused of something? They double down, they lie, they push, they appeal. But when Donald Trump and his DOJ is out of it, it ain't going to work. And they may be too stupid to not to know better. Look at Southeast Asia with the flooding disasters, or Hong Kong with these fires that happened recently. All incompetence and cruel. Our governments all around don't care. But luckily, around the world is waking up to that. Yeah, I agree with you. The people in all countries, especially America, are starting to wake up. I mean, you can take only so much shit. You can take so much stress and embarrassment in this country. We are embarrassed every day by this administration and by the Republican Party and sometimes the Democrats. I think people are getting tired of it and they are starting to push back. And, with a situation with Donald Trump and the Republicans, it's a lot like a snowball rolling down the hill. Small at first, slowly gets bigger, and then it gets so big and goes so fast that you can't stop it. It just runs them over. And I think we're kind of at that stage right now. David says the irony is that Trump has created the very deep state that he claimed to be wrong by. And, that's typical of Donald Trump. He's the one that said, we got to release the Epstein files. Biden administration is hiding it. And then when he gets there, he says, no, we don't want to do that. He'll use anything, he'll say anything to gain purchase at the moment, but he doesn't think past the end of his nose, and this is why he finds himself in this situation. A lot of people will say, well, why didn't Biden expose these people? when he was in office? And that's a good question. Part of the question is part of the answer is that they were in the process of, uh, prosecuting Ghislaine Maxwell. And when you're prosecuting Ghislaine Maxwell, everything is pretty much sealed. You really can't do anything. But once she was convicted, the question is, why didn't Biden expose this shit? And I'll tell you why. And I'm not trying to talk shit about Joe Biden in this case, but to a certain extent I am. It's more of a commentary on politics in general. The reason why nobody did anything with Jeffrey Epstein shit and released the files, too many wealthy, powerful people are in those files. And because they're wealthy and powerful and get all the tax breaks, all of the politicians cut them a break and say, oh, let's just forget about that one. That's what they did. The crazy thing is the reason we're in this mess right now and we're waiting for these files to come out is because Donald Trump can't shut his mouth. Everything that Donald Trump is involved in, he cannot shut his mouth. He causes it. He brings it to himself. All right. Nigel Farage is now being seen for the piece of shit he is. His parliament members from his party are being kicked out of the race for racist comments. Freaking hilarious. Yeah, the tide has turned. There was a time when they could do pretty much anything, and they got full of themselves. And now the tide is turning, and they're still trying to do what they normally do, and it ain't working. And you know what? These motherfuckers won't learn a lesson. Eric says he thought he could successfully say there was nothing to see, and he'd bury the files. Well, yeah, exactly. This is what Donald Trump thinks, and it's so ridiculous when you realize what's going on now. Donald Trump thinks he can say anything because he believes he can talk himself out of anything. He thinks everybody in this country loves him. And if he says, let's not even worry about the Epstein files, the people will do it. Unfortunately, once again, as always, Donald Trump is fucking wrong. He's always wrong. I've said it before. In these 10 months of 10 or 11 months that Donald Trump has been president, he could have came in here. He could have took things easy, not fucked with the economy because the economy was going great. He could have rode that wave. He could have done things that made him look good. It would have been so easy, and he would be fine right now. But he just can't do it. He just can't do it because he's fucking stupid, and he's arrogant, and he's a narcissist. So everything that's happening to Donald Trump may not have ever happened if not for fucking Donald Trump. He's trying to downplay this whole Venezuela boat thing with Hegseth. Oh, yeah, I bet he is. That's a pretty serious crime. I mean, that's fucking murder. And if that's murder, now we have to look into every boat that they killed people in. Because if they did it once, who knows how many times they would have done it. Frankly, blowing up these boats and killing these people, if there was a war, it would be a war crime. It's certainly an international crime, and there will be people other than the United States going after the people involved. Because even if you want to say Donald Trump has immunity, and he doesn't have immunity for everything, people misjudge that. He's not immune from everything, only a few things. But people like Pete Hegseth, people like the brass that work under Pete Hegseth that took the order from Hegseth and then sent the order down to have this done. Every one of them is culpable in this situation. And this is why they have to think very carefully about accepting an unlawful order. You know, when those 6 came out and said you don't have to accept an unlawful order. Why did Donald Trump get so mad about it? Maybe it's because he knew this thing with Hegseth was going on, and it was in fact an unlawful order. He doesn't want them to know that they're potentially in danger. But fact of the matter is they are potentially in danger at this point. Spacer, the Republicans after 2024 were expecting the public to roll over and ignore the cruelty. Well, and that's exactly what bullies do, and that's the only way bullies win. If they come up to you, threaten you, and you back down, and they push you down, and they run over the top of you, that's the only way bullies win. The moment somebody pushes back, or threatens back, or throws a punch, that's when they start running, and they start getting confused because their normal strategies no longer work. This is where the Republicans are now, and this is where Donald Trump is now, and that's why he's flailing and doesn't know what the fuck to do. And the thing we are missing, Maduro isn't a good guy. He is a dictator. But Trump doing this with these fishing boats is making Maduro the victim. Yeah. To be perfectly honest with you at this stage of the game, with all the shit we have going on in this country, don't give a fuck about Honduras. Don't give a fuck about Argentina. Don't give a fuck about Venezuela. I mean, America obviously is a global watchdog and we try to help people as much as we can. But we're in so much trouble right now. Shouldn't we be focusing on us, get us healthy so that we, in fact, can go out and help people that need it? We're not in a position to help people at this point because we're in such a fucking mess here. From the economy to the popularity of a president, 36%. And frankly, for me, that seems too fucking high. If there are 36% of the people in this country that support Donald Trump, we've got a we've got an epidemic of stupid people, unfortunately. I still see people supporting and uh, promoting Donald Trump. I can't even talk to them because there's really no real way they can explain to me why they are doing what they're doing unless they're ill-informed, misinformed, uninformed, and fucking flat out stupid. And we're getting toward the end here. We're going to wrap things up here in a minute. Um, Dennis says, I can't believe they're 36%. Me too. I thought we'd be under 30% by now. That seemed reasonable to me. It's still the lowest he's been in a long, long time, but 36% isn't very good for a president who's been in office for less than a year. Usually, their first year, they do pretty well. It's the second and third year that things start to go south. But Donald Trump has already fucked it up, and it's not going to get any better. Most of the 36% will back off once he's being showed to be in the files. But then again, I want to meet the 2 to 10% who are still undecided. 87% of Republicans still support Trump, so they say. And that wouldn't surprise me because I think the Republican Party as a whole is a criminal element in this country. Sad to say, but some of these Republicans will say, well, I'm not as bad as Donald Trump. I would never do those things. Yeah, but you supported him. So in my book, you're just as guilty. If you support somebody, it's like the whole thing with the Epstein files. And whenever I talk to somebody who's a Trump-fuck and they say, well, Donald Trump this or Donald Trump that, I say, look, we know Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. We know that Donald Trump knew Epstein, was buddies with Epstein, even after he was convicted of these horrible crimes. So if you're supporting Donald Trump, you're supporting somebody who at the very least is supporting a pedophile. Presumably he's a pedophile too. So if that's who you support, I want no fucking part of you because you're a piece of shit. Could it be the end of the Republican Party as we know it, like the Whigs? Yeah, I think it is the end of the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party as we knew it ended probably 5 years ago. During the first term, we still had the Republican Party to a certain extent, but after 2020, they just threw caution to the wind and they said, we'll do whatever it takes to regain power. I think the Republican Party is gone as we speak. I think the Republican Party as a brand will probably disappear because they'll end up all being pariahs. My brother said straight up, he does not care if he's in the files. Made my skin crawl. Well, incandescent light, I don't know if you have children or not, but if my brother said he doesn't care if Donald Trump is in the files, I would say, well, then I don't want you around my children. Ever. Never. I don't want you anywhere near my children. That's what I've said before. People will say, "Well, you've gotta forgive them when they finally realize." No, no, I'm not. If you just disagreed with me politically, that's one thing. But if you support the egregious things, the horrible things, the atrocities that have been committed by the Republican Party, as far as I'm concerned, you're irredeemable. And even if you're sorry now, I cannot trust you. Because when the next fucking crazy train comes through, I'm sure you're going to jump on board. So stay the fuck away from me. Stay the fuck away from my kids. MAGA is fracturing, absolutely fracturing, and thank God for that. When that fractures, Donald Trump fractures, and then this shit'll be over. It's gonna be over eventually. I'm afraid it's still gonna be painful up until that moment in time because of all the flailing and all the desperation, but at least it's good news that we're probably close to the end here, and I'm happy to hear that. The important thing to remember is when the end comes, it's gonna take a lot of work to fix everything, so you're gonna have to be patient. There needs to be demagnifying after this is over, like the Allies did in Germany after World War II. Um, Dennis says, call them the PPP, Pedo Protection Project. Yeah, I don't think, or Pedo Protection Party. That's pretty much what it is. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this Substack Live. I want to thank you all for joining me, as I always say. Without you guys showing up and interacting, this is boring as shit. So thank you for helping me out here and jawing away with me. I appreciate it immensely. Those of you listening, I appreciate you taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.